June 6, 1944. The largest amphibious invasion in human history. 5,000 ships are churning across the English Channel to break Hitler's fortress Europe. History remembers the soldiers storming the sand. But before a single boot touched the beach, one ship had to kick down the door. Leading the invasion force for Utah Beach was the destroyer USS Corry. Her captain, George Hoffman, had a reputation for grit. But on this gray morning, the carefully laid plans of D-Day were about to shatter, leaving Hoffman and his crew of 284 men alone against the might of the Atlantic Wall. The mission was precise. The Corry was to close within point-blank range of the French coast to blast the German bunkers. To survive, she needed cover. At H-hour -40, a plane was scheduled to lay a thick wall of smoke between the ship and the German guns. But just minutes before the operation began, disaster struck. The plane was shredded by German anti-aircraft fire and crashed into the sea. Suddenly, the smoke cover was gone. The rest of the invasion fleet was hidden by fog banks or distance, but the Corry was exposed. She was sitting in a patch of clear water, barely 1,000 yards from the beach. To the German gunners at the massive Crisbecq battery, she was the only target in the world. Captain Hoffman faced a brutal choice. He could retreat back into the fog bank to save his ship, but he saw the first wave of landing craft struggling toward the beach. He knew if he hid, the German heavy artillery would lower their sights and slaughter the infantry in the water. So, Hoffman made his choice. He didn't retreat. He ordered rapid, continuous fire and turned his broadside to the enemy. He made himself the shield. He engaged in a desperate tactical game called Salvo Chasing. When a German shell exploded in the water, Hoffman would immediately turn the ship toward the splash, gambling that the German gunners would adjust their aim away from that spot. It was a duel between a 2,500-ton tin can and a concrete fortress. For 20 minutes, the Corry danced through a storm of steel. Every massive shell that screamed toward the destroyer was one less shell hitting the landing craft. But the odds were too high. At 6:33 a.m., a salvo of heavy-caliber shells tore through the engineering spaces below the waterline. The keel snapped. The duel was over. The Corry began to sink rapidly. But even as the crew jumped into the freezing channel, the German batteries kept firing, targeting the survivors in the water. Seeing their sister ship go down, the destroyers USS Fitch and Hobson charged into the kill zone. They laid smoke to hide the men in the water and poured suppressive fire onto the bunkers. But 5-inch destroyer guns couldn't kill the beast at Crisbecq. It would take a heavyweight to finish the fight. 90 minutes later, the battleship USS Nevada turned her massive 14-inch guns toward the coast. At 0800 hours, a direct hit from the Nevada smashed through the concrete casemate, silencing the gun that had killed the Corry. The Corry settled on the bottom in only 30 feet of water. Her hull was submerged, but her main mast still pierced the surface, sticking up above the waves. As the crew fought to stay afloat, one sailor, whose name remains unknown to history, turned back. Amidst the oil and the wreckage, he swam to the mast and climbed up. For the rest of D-Day, as thousands of troops poured onto Utah Beach, they looked out and saw it. The ship was lost, but her colors were flying. Resting on the bottom of French territorial waters, it was the first American flag planted in France on D-Day, a final defiant salute from the ship that sacrificed everything to lead the way.